Welcome to HIT Podcast, HIT, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we're dropping into your feed with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, well-curated conversations going on in the space. We pick up our conversation with Chris Hallberg, the business sergeant, and just an absolute wealth of knowledge. This will be part two. Part one we aired last week, so if you missed part one, go back and check that out. And otherwise, this week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions, and let's get right back into our chat with Chris. Okay, let me ask you something that I want to take this tangible, because I think you bring up such a brilliant philosophical mindset that is almost irrefutable. It's like, if you're listening to this and you disagree, please don't run a business ever, right? Like the things you're saying are excellent, right? And so the period full stop. Here's what I want to say. The listener, and I'm putting myself in the listener's shoes because candidly, I've been in the following predicament before too, where you're listening to these words and you're getting convicted because you know it's right, but you need to go from here to there, so to speak, right? And what I want to sit in and ask your opinion on is, the people that are limping along have institutional knowledge. They at least understand where the machine plugs and unplugs at your organization. And there is a cost to turnover. There's, a customer experience when you're going through the difficult growing pain of, we have X percent of our workforce that are on fire, and we've got another Y percent that honestly need to be phased out. And I'm almost thinking of that like Indiana Jones, where he has to sort of like swap the things out, because if it's so jarring and you sort of cut a bunch of people at once and you have this whole new team come in and nobody knows anything and everyone's trying to figure it out. So I'm curious about the idea of how systematically you go about churning the dirt, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah. So there's like the movie Goodfellas, when Joe Pesci goes down to the basement, he thinks he's going to get made, but he's standing on plastic, right? So that was like, that's like the mafia style, where we're letting you go on a Monday morning and the new you starts 24 hours later on Tuesday morning. And the new you is obviously a superior version of the old
but that's
you
if
to
you even have
everyone
the new
else.
you, right? I mean, to be honest with you, the new you is bloody difficult to find these days.
Yeah, totally understand that. So there's some other issues in there, but what I'm saying, an intentional, this one's not working, everyone knows
That's
it.
Right. I got you.
This is where you go ahead and get the search going, like, because you're better off with the wrong person. They're not completely useless. We're short. Without their hands, it gets worse for the team. So right. my coaching is, okay, you're dealing with it. You find your people. That one goes on a Monday, 24 hours of the next one. That sends a message to everyone. Everyone looks down at the floor. Am I on carpet or am I on plastic? So anyone who was in the middle that wasn't sure if they were going to be great or not automatically has an opportunity to say, okay, that wasn't on accident. That's a warning shot. I love it here, I guess, and I'm going to try. Or, wow, am I next? Anyone saying, am I next? Ask yourself, why are you putting yourself on that list? So I'm just saying,
who's not worried about getting a fire from the Dodgers? Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, so there it is. So that's the number one issue. The second.
Although there's Mavericks fans rolling in their grave right now because they're like, oh yeah.
So the second approach is, hey, kind of like, look like you don't want to be here. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you're taking a valuable roster spot from someone who would thrive here. So if you're really not feeling this, let's get you another job somewhere else. I think a good company, when they let the wrong person go, can, help them find employment elsewhere. This doesn't have to be a negative thing that's bad. It could just be, for whatever reason, your energy is not with us, and we really appreciate your past service. We'd like to transition you in the most comfortable, kindest, gentlest way possible. But here are your numbers. And if you're not hitting these numbers next week, we're going to go ahead and make room for someone that we feel would want to do it, or has the capacity to do it. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. You're curating a team. And what got you here, we've heard this before, won't get you there. So back to How do I deal with people that are hard to find? I'd say that's a recruiting issue. So you need better partners, or you need to capitalize your HR. So like what I find when I meet with a team that's not functioning to their potential, there are 4 or 5 key people or the wrong people in the wrong seats. And I sniff them out in the first couple of sessions. Within 3 months, 6 months, I have a pretty good lay of the land. And as we start to upgrade the worst ones first, like I said, the other people have an opportunity. Here's my wake up call. Or you know what? I don't like it here either. So, like, once we make it okay to not be a perfect fit, and we don't have to include everybody who isn't a great fit, and we just say that's just the game we play, nothing personal, it's just business. And we have a hiring process that's intelligent, like personality assessments before we even interview them to make sure they have the wiring of our most successful people.
Is
A
that still game
onboarding
on though? Because
process.
I've heard people say that that's like that can be a little discriminatory, or you wind up inadvertently hiring people that I don't know, do or don't represent a protected class.
Yeah. So like, so here's the neat thing about that. So I'm not asking, this is before I meet them. So I have no idea if they're purple with yellow spots.
Mhm.
I'm asking if they have the mental horsepower, wiring, energy, and focus to do the job. So what I'm saying is I'm going to test all the people in that position. And again, colorblind. I'm going to look at the results of those folks. And when you do this, let's say you have 20 project managers, your top 4 project managers will all share the same 1 or 2 personality archetypes.
Right.
The middle third will all share some other ones. And then the ones that are horrible will all share that. So if we just only interview the people in the top third, that means they have the wiring to actually be successful. Then we can then filter whatever else filters that you find necessary at your organization. But my point is, if you start with those other filters and then you don't use the filters I'm talking about, you're going to make a lot of bad hires with good intentions, but it's not going to paper, it's not going to execute. So, respectfully, I've been doing this for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and this has been my program for 20 years. And when we follow my 10-step hiring process, which includes an assessment before you fall in love with Mr. or Mrs. Wrong,
Right.
which is what happens.
Yeah.
And like most people make their determination in an interview in about 5 or 10 minutes and then spend the rest either being polite or reinforcing their super great gut decision that they made hastily early on.
Right.
So, most hires, like 1 out of 3 hires is going to be here in 3 or 4 years. That's just the numbers. 2 out of 3 hires are going to be here in a couple of years. If we start with like, what is the right person? Then we go for culture, resume, references, all that other stuff. But to me, like, what this person has energy and wiring to do, getting people to go against the grain is why people fail in roles, not because they're dumb, not because they're lazy. It's because we're kind of built as a human to do something else. And we can all do things outside of our wiring, but it's uncomfortable, it's work, it's stressful. When you find someone who's naturally great, think about your 1 or 2 top performers in each of the roles as we listen to this. They make their job look easy. It's effortless because they were born to be in this role at your company doing the thing. The other people that just can't seem to get off a PIP or move off a performance line is they might thrive at another position at your company if they're a cultural fit. But it's really hard to say, I don't know if I'm right for sales, maybe operations. Like that is a conversation that usually happens way up front when one applies, or my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, my dad wanted to be a doctor. How many people out of college really nail their
Right.
career in the first try or two, right? Usually it's not like that. So like my point is, when we have the data of great people and not so great people, and to not use that very same data when we meet new people is asinine.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. You're doing it the hard way.
So you've talked a little bit about kind of finding the right person, which I would almost describe as like the front end. You've talked a little bit about the core values and really honing in on those and making sure that they're not just words on a wall, which I just think is such a cool expression, which I would say is almost like the big kind of meta picture here. How about like getting those hires and even teams connected to the mission, vision, values. Like, how often are you drilling in on this stuff? Because you did a little bit earlier where you're like, I have no problem separating wheat from chaff. Basically, we're going to be crystal clear and we're going to be unapologetic about the things that we expect of our folk. And it's like, is that happening quarterly, annually? Like, talk to me about how you get a team to know, oh, this is the drum beat and I'm the right guy to beat this drum and I understand the drum beat and I am still on rhythm.
Yeah. So this is the benefit of having a business operating system like EOS. There are other brands. Obviously, I'm a huge EOS nerd, so I'll speak from that experience. But a business operating system, real quick, like there's 6 key components. First one, vision. These are the 8 questions. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we do? How much, by when, with who, 3-year, 1-year, quarterly, long-term issues. So we all opt into that or opt out of that. We don't try to customize it. Companies are buses, not Ubers. Stop trying to take my bus to your grandma's house, okay? Second key component, the people component, right people, right seats, right people share your core values. They're weird just like you are. So they care about what you care about. No friction there. Right seats, GWC, get it, want it, have the capacity. Got to be the right person in the right seat, not the right person in the wrong seat or the wrong person in the right seat or the wrong person in the wrong seat. Third key component is the data component. How do we know we got the right people in the right seats? Well, they're hitting their numbers and they're happy and the customer's happy and they have a measurable, and we look at that weekly, right? We look at the results monthly, but we look at the activities. So if your AR is 300 grand, how do you get AR? You ask people for money. So your weekly scorecard is, that you phone 80% of the people that are 46 days aged or more. And the AR person, their scorecard is to call 80% of those. They're welcome to call 100, but you're paid for 80 or more. Hit it or don't hit it. The phone's just going to sit there. You got to pick it up. That's the activity. The AR shrinking is your monthly number. Fourth key component, the issues component. Issues aren't just problems, although that's the most popular version. They're also opportunities. They're things that need to be discussed, decided, and committed to. Fifth key component, the process component, the 20% that gives you the 80%. Checklist outlines, go fast things to provide a consistent, scalable experience the customers love. And then the sixth and final key component is the traction component, bringing the vision down to the ground, creating a 90-day world. And rocks, a term coined by the late Dr. Stephen Covey, which are just your big priorities, usually strategic initiatives outside of the day-to-day. Once done, give you a new capacity or new capability, and then we create a 90-day world. So what that means is if we have a big, hairy, audacious goal, 10-year target, and then every year we set a 3-year picture and a 1-year plan, and then we operate to them, and then a year later we recast the 3-year and the 1-year. It keeps it classy, where you can adjust and tune in. Then once we have the 1-year plan, then we have 4 quarters, which we have rocks and meetings. Then we have 13 weeks in the quarter to make sure each quarter plan is executed. So we're really talking about military backwards planning. There's one to be in 10 years where you got to be in 3. There's one to be in 3 where you got to be in 1. There's one to be in 1 where you got to be in 90 days from now. This is where you got to be in 90 days. What am I doing this week to make that true? So I'm just reducing it down, where the large plan becomes a weekly plan. So to answer your question directly, we're talking about it weekly in a very structured EOS operating system meeting, which is a level 10 meeting. And that agenda is we show up, we check in, business best, personal best. That's our team health, right? We learn about what makes each other tick of the 2,000 things you did personally and professionally. Then we go into our scorecards. Did you hit your numbers? On track. Thank you. On track. Thank you. Off track. Drop it down to the issues list. We're going to, you owe it to be green. It's red. So explain what you're doing to make it green. And do you need any help or support from your teammates? Then we go to the rocks. Are they on track, off track? Because we're delivering rocks in a couple of weeks. How we doing? And then we go to headlines, people and employee headlines, ecosystem, good news, bad news, no discussion. If we require discussion, drop it down. Then we go to to-dos from last week. We promised to get some things done for this meeting. So rather than having 14 meetings, we have one big meeting, and then we leave people space to actually do the work, but it actually has to be done or else. So 90% of your promises, your to-dos have to be done to be a good teammate. And then after that, we get into It's a 90-minute meeting. Then we get into the lion's share of the meeting. After that first 25 minutes of triage, yes, no, should I say thanks, or should we put it on the list? But we're not going to talk about it now, because that's where the good idea fairy and the excuse fairy and all the other bad business fairies show up. They're not invited. And then we're going to identify, discuss, and solve. Most people are pretty good at the D part, but they're bad at the I part, because it's attached to a sacred cow, an 800-pound gorilla, the owner, your boss, and we can't really talk about the real problem. So we make up a symptom that we can solve, but it comes back. So being brave, speaking the truth, identify, discuss, and solve. We issue it out to to-dos. Those are due next week. And then we conclude the meeting by recapping those to-dos to make sure everyone is disciplined and accountable. We rate the meeting, and then we cascade any messages if decisions were made. Who's going to tell the troops? How are you going to tell the troops? So if I've got all this planning and I have a weekly pulse to make sure it's going, if you're missing your monthly result on your scorecard, we just take your weekly activity and we turn it up until we get the parity, or we get a new person who can make it green effortlessly for my earlier conversation, because they're the right person in the right seat and they share the same characteristics as our highest performers. So I just kind of listed out the operating system, EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, at a very high level. But we have an annual meeting where we figure out the 3-year and the 1 year. We redo those plans, and then we create new rocks every 90 days inside. So my point is, there's no reason to do detailed 2, 3, 4, 5-year business planning. Who even knows where business is going to be in 3 years with AI and all the stuff going on? Why don't we have an idea of where we're going so we don't go somewhere else? And we have some touch points on the way to make sure that we're tacking towards there. And we have all these abilities to have conversations, get commitments, understand people aren't committed, swap out people, do whatever we do on the way. And what I find is, even if you only have 20% of your company are not the right people, or they're not in the right seat, that is enough of a foothold for the 80% to never get to where they want to go. My experience and my data shows that once we get to about 90% right people, right seats, they'll clear out the other 10% organically from within. So it's your job. If you're an HR leader, a department head, a C-suite person, listen, our job is just to create the environment for the right people to thrive. It's not to accommodate everyone's hopes, desires, wishes, limitations, because when we start doing that, we add up just a half a degree off here, 5 degrees there. You're no longer pointed this way. You're pointed in a completely different way. So the neat thing about the operating system is we say this is exactly what it is. We've spent a lot of time and money as a team with our implementer to figure this out. We're in love with this. I sure hope you are too. If not, we're going to miss you. And that level of buy-in and buy-out is the difference between having a beautiful company and having a company that doesn't meet that description. Hard stop, full, put a period on it. 20 years of doing this, that's exactly how we do it. We decide from the nucleus, the people actually getting it done, who are we? Why do we exist? What are we going to do? Who are we going to do it with? How much are we going to do it? Now let's find some of these other 7 billion people that want that exact same thing, and let's hire them. And all these other people that want half of the vision, who are getting in the way of the ones that want it all. Yeah. That's the issue, is taking a perfectly serviceable human that isn't aligned and removing them to a brand new person that is totally aligned, but they're unsure if they can do the work. That little bit of fear right there is what locks people up and allows them to never go to the promised land. But my clients, I require a decision, a commitment. Like you said, you wanted to be awesome. Okay, let me give you 5 minutes on what you're going to have to do in the next 6-9 months to be awesome. Are you ready to do that? And the people are like, yep, we're going to do that. We take them right through, low drama, a lot of certainty. The people that aren't willing to do that, I'll say, well, call me when you are, because I already know what's going to happen. And
that's a decent segue, actually, as you mentioned, sort of like your clients and call me, because you've given a lot of really good prescription on sort of how to get stuff done that, to be honest with you, as I'm listening, and these are obviously, my words and my takeaway, but really is best with a guide and a person to sort of say, hey, look, here's how well I understand the prescription, but you'll want someone in there sort of moderating and driving and steering and sort of shepherding. And you actually mentioned a moment ago AI and how do we know where business is going as sort of a chaos agent. So kind of no better time than now anyways for businesses to sort of look at where is our North Star, how are we oriented, and how do we get somebody in to kind of help make sure that we've got the boat, pointing in the right direction with all the right people. So, I guess I'd ask, what is a decent way for people to get a hold of you and reach out if they sort of heard this and said, you know what, those guys are right, now is the time for us to reevaluate this. How can someone get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd love to have your listeners connect with me on LinkedIn. Chris Hallberg, you can find me there. My Go Expand, it's Chris at goexpand.com. You can find me at eosworldwide.com/Chris Hallberg. And then the Business Sergeant is, again, a learning community just for veterans, so we can kind of polish them up, translate their military service into civilian service. So there's a lot of different ways to find me. I'm easy to find, and would love to hear from your people.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for your time, just being so generous with your wisdom today. I really, really appreciate that. And hopefully folks reach out, because I think that you've got a phenomenal track record of getting companies, from here to there. Because as you said, we'll get you here, won't get you there. That is all the time we have for you on this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors, Rula, Excel Health, TrueHue, Montage Insurance Solutions. We're blessed to be here, and thank you for the guys keeping the lights on. Thank you guys for joining us. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.